Okay. Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome to this panel for KiwiRPG Week 2026. This is the Māori Creators Panel. I will start us off with a karakia and then we will get stuck into our kōrero tonight. He karakia tātou. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mākina kina ki uta, kia mātaratara ki tai, e hi aki ana te atākura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei, mauri ora.
Mauri ora.
Well, as all panels have to start with, we should probably introduce ourselves. So, kia ora, he uri hau no ngai tahu, me te atiawa o te waka a Māui, e noho ana au ki te whanganui a Tara, ko Riwhi Kenny ahau. Kia ora, my name is Riwhi. I use he, him, ia pronouns. Whakapapa on my mother's side to Ngāi Tahu, Te Atiawa, and Te Atiawa o Te Waka Māui. And then on my dad's side to Greece, a little saffron farming village, which is nice because it means I get good cheap saffron, although I do need more saffron recipes if anyone has any good ones, because it's just kind of sitting in my cupboard. I've been writing TTRPG since 2024, and I guess I'll say currently a committee member on the KiwiRPG committee. Shall I pass to Liam if you want to go next or what?
Yeah. Kia ora tātou e hoa mā. And also, tēnā koe te kaikaraki, ngā mihi nui. Yeah, ko ai au, ko Liam Stevens o Kungoa, hei uri o Ngāti Kahanuni ki te Wāroa, me Ngāti Ruapani au. Mō turanga nui e kiwa hau kei o te tahi tuka kāinga nai nei. Kia ora, I'm Liam. I whakapapa up to the foothills of Te Urawira, from a small town called Frasertown outside of another small town called Wāroa. I grew up in Gisborne, but I'm down in Otetahi these days where I'm trying to not freeze at the moment while I'm sitting here having a kōrero. My Māori whakapapa is all from my mother's side, and my old man is from Ireland and the UK. So no saffron deals for me, unfortunately. I have been in the RPG space for quite some time now. I don't even know when I started in that space now, come to think of it, but a while. I do a combination of game design and cultural consultation around the inclusion of sort of Māori themes and culture, but also more generally Indigenous sort of themes, and also colonial sort of or decolonial sort of themes in game design as well as other areas. I do a bit of consulting in video games and fiction and things as well. I've worked on a number of titles that people watching this may be familiar with. I've worked on a game called Pathfinder. I've worked on Daggerheart, Candela Obscura, Mothership. I've worked on a bunch of Kiwi games as well. I've done a bit of work for Monster of the Week and a wee bit of work for Deathmatch Island and a bunch of other stuff as well. I'm quite excited to be here. I used to be on the committee for Kiwi Whakataua Aotearoa, KiwiRPG. Riwhi is being very humble. Riwhi is the glue that holds that committee together, doing all of the admin work in the background there. It's absolutely be lost without Riwhi's support. Keen to be here and have a kōrero. Who we go to next? Anyone? Who discuss?
Kia koe, Sascha?
Yeah, kia ora. I'm Sascha, kaitahu katwhirapa runa kutaraki. I am the author of the Dawnhounds and that trilogy of books. I've worked on 2 major TTRPGs, neither of which shipped, one of which was a called Divinity Lost supplement. I've done some really cool work that's still currently under NDA. And so the day before this panel, I went, I've got to have something. So I went and put this GM tool I've been using for years up on Edge. I've done a lot of work in the industry, and very little of it has come to anything at this stage. But I'm a novelist currently with Cyberpress, and been a GM in half a dozen systems over about 20 years. Yeah, moving on.
And you also have the coolest pair of headphones of all of us on this panel.
Winning.
Thank you.
Wow.
Goes without saying. Yeah. Well, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou te iwi kei te mātakitaki mai. Ko waiau, ko te aihe ere ki te kākano Butler tōku ingoa, he uri ahau no Ngāti Parau, no te whānau apanui hoki, engari I tipu ake ana ahau ki te whanganui ātara, e noho ana ahau, e mahi ana ahau, e nai nei, ki tāmaki makaurau, he kaiwhakaputa rongorau ahau, ngā rongorau pērā ngā kōnei pūrangi, te nuinga o te wā, engari sort of muck around with lots of different things. My name's Aihe. I whakapapa to Ngāti Parau on the East Coast, te whānau apanui on the East Coast, but I grew up in the cold southerly breeze of Wellington. And these days I live in Auckland, where the climes are a bit warmer, and most of my time I spend working as a content producer, which most of the time looks like producing podcasts, producing video content. I work for an independent media company called The Spinoff, who I understand Sascha has done a little bit of writing for back in the day. And lovely people, lovely kaupapa, and sort of related to and sidelong of that, I also work with a really talented bunch of sort of collective of creative folks called the Wild Magic Tavern, with my friends, primarily led by my friend Tom Eason and my other mates, Patty Carroll, Lewis Gregory, among others. And I think that was my way into tabletop, was playing games and telling stories with a bunch of friends who are all ex-drama school students, which is how we knew each other. And then we thought we'd have a crack at telling some of our own stories. And I guess the most prominent thing that exists in the world as an example of that is a podcast we made and released last year called Fury of the Small, which was published on The Spinoff, and is a lovely piece of work that we're really proud of. Super new to the KiwiRPG community, but I'm super happy to be here. Super happy to be Māori, super happy to be creative, and this panel feels like it's relevant on all three of those counts. So, tēnā koutou.
Kia ora.
Tēnā koutou. I guess a place to start maybe is like, what is everyone's experience of being Māori in the TTRPG scene? I know, Liam, you mentioned a few years ago you couldn't find any other Māori creators. What are we looking at today? How do we feel like it is?
I feel like it's strong as now. Like, and just to be clear, just because I couldn't find any in 2018 or so, it doesn't mean they weren't out there. I just couldn't find them, right? It's one of those things too where I think it's been interesting watching sort of how RPGs have gotten more mainstream in the last few years, right? Because if you're honest, it's a pretty middle class sort of bougie hobby for the most part. You're going to go buy a whole bunch of books and everything. You don't have to, but most people, it's there's a bit of a barrier of entry there, right? So it's sort of the sort of thing that's taken some time to filter out and get out there. But I think actually Māori, we all grew up with pūrākau. We grew up with lots of cool yarns and everything. We all learn about the atua and all of that kind of stuff, and all of those stories very naturally fit into the sort of stuff that people mostly do in tabletop RPGs, eh? So I'm seeing more and more people getting involved. I'm lucky enough to go and do talks at schools and things occasionally, and they all have roleplay clubs that are full of tamariki and having a great time. I think it's cool to see, and now the amount of actual games about being Māori made by Māori people out there is growing. And again, that wasn't really a thing some time ago. There was lots of about us without us, but now you can watch live streams with Māori involved. You can buy books that are written by Māori and all of that. and it's great. It's a good thing to see. I'm every year there's more and more of them. I don't know, like it makes me really happy, really, really proud actually. Again, when we started KiwiRPG, Kimi Whakatau Aotearoa, back in it was the pandemic, so 2020. At the time, I just remember thinking we just got to try and get more people, more Māori, into this sector, into this industry. And now there's there's a few of us starting to kick about KiwiRPG. So I'm happy. Certainly want more of us. I want it to grow a lot more, but compared to where we were just a wee while ago, I'm feeling it's heartwarming. Aye.
Kōrero.
What's your thoughts? What do you reckon? As one of those Māori releasing books, what's your how you feel about it?
Oh, it just it's really exciting, like looking at like searching like Māori TTRPGs, and like there's actual things there now, because I put out what at the time I believe, to my knowledge, was the first online published one. And then like literally the next day someone else put like a Māori setting inspired. And I was like, yes, this is amazing. Just kind of seeing it start to come online as well, because like you say, Liam, like it's been, we know that it's existed, but seeing it get a bit more presence and reach is really exciting.
Right.
And like I've had people who very clearly have never heard of Māori culture or interacted with Māori people before, like read some of my games and interact with my games, and it's just awesome to see that there is actually interest, even overseas, not just from people in Aotearoa, but people who've never come across. So that's really exciting to me as well, that there is that interest, and there is that people want it. People want Indigenous storytelling to exist.
Oh, well, they want that. It's one of those things that we know the interest is out there, because we've been seeing other people writing about us, and kind of with varying degrees of success for some time. But people want it to be authentic. They want it to come from us, and actually capture our experiences in a genuine way. And I think we see that across the art. I'm sure our other two guests have encountered that in their various sort of works or mediums as well. There's as the world gets smaller, right, because of the internet, and people are starting to actually value, well, it's questionable looking at the state of the world, but a lot of people are valuing the diversity of the world that we find ourselves in. There's a desire to capture those sorts of things, and trying to get more of our voices out there and forming that, I think, is key, because we've seen some tragic misrepresentations over the years. So it's good to try and get some good stuff out there. What about what about like Sascha? You do a bit of writing and bits and pieces. What's your sort of thoughts around the appetite out there for culture and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a huge appetite for it, and it often hasn't been done very well. What I was thinking about in the TTRPG space is, if you saw a Māori character when I was growing up, it was a barbarian.
Yeah.
It was a big guy with his shirt off, with a club. And I didn't know you'd worked on. Did you work on the Exemplar in Pathfinder 2?
No, that wasn't me.
It's a relatively new class, and the key art looks kind of Māori Polynesian, and it felt like I was kind of blown away that it felt like a real expression of Māoritanga, where if you don't know the class, you collect names, you collect heroic names, and those give you skills. Sorry, I'll just kind of pull some of these up here, because they're quite great. The brave, the cunning, the proud, you get obverse, unbroken, peerless under heaven. And that kind of feels meaningfully Māori to me, that it has that storytelling element to it, and also that like collecting of great deeds, that you're kind of going out and doing these incredible things. And And that kind of blew me away, because we were having these discussions about, you know, stealing something the greatest moko for your barbarian, what, 5 or 6 years ago?
Right.
Like, it feels like we've made a huge amount of progress. I still think it often does feel a little bit tokenizing. There was a great Chloe Gong piece in the Stronach where she was talking about, I don't think minority authors should be trendy because trends end.
Yeah.
And
Aye.
Yeah.
that's definitely something we've seen in fiction publishing a lot, where so during the first Trump presidency, there was this huge demand for marginalized authors, and then as soon as Biden got elected, it dropped off a cliff.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure that the demand dropped, but the publishers just stopped backing it. And it's kind of creeping back up there, but I don't like the fact that people are kind of buying books reactively due to the politics of the world. I think it was Premier Muhammad who was talking about, like, I hate that people talk about reading marginalized books like it's eating your vegetables. like, yeah, I read a book by a brown person, and now I can go have my steak and dessert, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, no, this is a treat also. And so I think we are in a better place than we were, but I do still think we're in a place where, to a lot of people, like, including these marginalized experiences is like eating your vegetables. And I think, I don't know, if I want to blaze a path forward, I want to be like, no, this is the steak. This
Aye.
is,
Aye.
this is what we're here for.
I've
yeah.
got a couple of
Is that-
things. Sorry, a couple
No,
of
no,
things
go
that
for
come to
it.
mind while you're talking. One of them, I know the fellow that wrote that piece for Pathfinder. His name's James, and he's actually Kanaka Maoli from Hawaii. So James and I work a wee bit together. We actually did a couple of panels together as well over in the States a couple of years ago. So that's why that feels authentic, because it's coming from our whanaunga, you know, elsewhere over the ocean. But no, you're right, and I think what you're saying around some inclusion for inclusion's sake or whatever, or diversity for diversity's sake, and they're kind of doing it for the moral pat on the back or whatever. There's certainly a degree of that, and I encounter that quite a bit in my consultation work that I do. It's quite common for you know, authors who are writing something and they're including a Polynesian themed or Māori themed or Indigenous themed thing. When they reach out to someone like me, they're like, right, we want this thing to be safe. How do we make sure we don't offend anyone? And to my answer is, well, there's a million Māori. That means there's a million different ideas as to what it is to be Māori. You're not gonna get all of them, right? And actually, to try and just do it like safe, or just to do it right or whatever, or to like look like you care, shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be, how do we go out there and actually do this, right? There's risks involved, and like all art, we should be making informed decisions around those risks and what are we trying to say, because if you start trying too hard to make something too clean or too pristine, you're going to actually not really say much at the end of the day. So there's a guy called ZX Hugh, who's a Indonesian game designer, and him and I have done a lot of work together, consulting and bits and pieces. And we're always like, if you're coming to us asking, how do we do this thing to this not be offensive? Don't. That's not what we're here for. Because what happened to us is offensive. Colonization's offensive. So if we're having this kōrero, there should be a degree of each there, but you should be doing it deliberately. We can tell you what will upset a lot of people, and how to avoid the real offensive stuff. But at the same time, let's actually, especially if you're doing a work of fiction that's taking inspiration from the real world as opposed to just sort of, you know, retelling the real world, actually try and think about this and engage in it in a certain way. And it's really interesting how many publishers or whatever back off completely when you start saying that. Like, oh, well, actually what we wanted was to have the tokenistic diversity inclusion. We wanted that piece of art that has someone of a moko kowe. That's when I get asked a lot about artwork that has moko in it. And it's like, well, we thought it'd be cool for one of the background characters just to have a moko. I'm like, okay, why? Like, who's this for? Before I give you feedback, who's it for? Are you doing this for Māori and you want it to have inclusion for our sake? Are you doing it so that your tauiwi audience is happy that they're reading a book that has Māori inclusion? Or are you, what are you actually trying to do? Because I'll give you different answers depending on what it is you're trying to achieve, right? And that's an interesting space to find ourselves in the modern age. But anyway, I'm starting to go down the rabbit hole. Sorry, Whānau, I have ADHD. So if I start going down the rabbit hole, so feel free to pull me out.
Ka pai koe, Matsua. Get down that rabbit hole. I do have sorry, Sascha, you're breaking up a little bit there for me.
Yeah, Sasha's dropping.
You're good, mate. You're good. Nah, paku whakautu to the original prompt, I think, of like what's the experience of being Māori in this space. I think it's really heartening for me to hear both Liam and Sascha talk to the trajectory that we've been on and where we are now, and the positive signs, and then, you know, obviously the fact that there's still issues, there's still complexities to being Māori. I think you could say that to an extent of being Māori in any space. But as a relative newcomer, I feel like it's maybe an interesting perspective, a relative newcomer to tabletop games in general, but then also sort of the industry side of, you know, actively making content for tabletop, you know, creative spaces. And for me, it's like it's this interesting thing where I started considering it, and if you think about it being, it's a niche within a niche, where you go like, of all the people you know, how hard is it to find people to play tabletop games with and engage on this with this content with? And it's like you're already cutting down a pretty small percentage of people in your life who are similarly interested or passionate about this space. And then within those people, probably as even smaller slice of those people, tangata Māori or whakapapa Māori. And certainly I was thinking about it for my own sake, and I was like, man, not a lot of the mates who I got into this hobby with whakapapa Māori. And I think maybe because of that, it's not something that I've been super conscious of, as I've played this fantasy escapism game about trying to get play out fantastical stories in an far off world with magic and swords and shit. But I think it doesn't take long before you play, you know, the D&Ds of the world, which are, and there's a lot of really good literature and discourse online about how these games are sort of like rooted in colonial archetypes of going in and wiping out groups of clans of savage other races and taking all of their shit and you know, building up your own resources and all that kind of stuff. And there's lots of there's too much to unpack there for one panel for this panel of Māori creatives. But I think for a long time my experience of being Māori in this space was that, and it was getting into shit fights with people on Reddit about whether it's okay to do a Māori accent if I've got a Māori NPC, even though I'm not Māori, which the spoiler for that is no, don't do it. But, you know, shit fights on Reddit, there's no real diminishing returns and going down that rabbit hole. And then also, like, you know, I guess beyond that, the experience of being Māori in this space was, for me at least, you know, one of the gateways into getting into tabletop was listening to Critical Role and then hearing Matt Mercer, for as far as I could tell, just like butcher the word kaitiaki as part of his. I don't know if this is like a ongoing gag. This is something it's been bugging me for ages to try and find some people to talk to about it. But I'm like, is that what you're trying to say? Are you taking this thing that you sort of vibed with? And you know, like, full respect to the guy for he's a well-respected figure in the world of that's an understatement. I can appreciate that I'm saying that, you know, they're massive and all that, but like that was the extent of my experience of being Māori in this space. Was like, oh man, this guy that people worship the ground on is just sort of like fucking butchering this word that I sort of means what he thinks it means, but it's being used, and it's like like that's a kaitiaki is a person. It's somebody who does that. It's like not a greeting or a. Anyway, that was the extent of me coming in and sort of like assessing where Māoridom was at from a very early point. And it's been a very relieving process for me to realize that there are people like Riwhi, people like Liam, people like Sascha, who are actually putting grounded, you know, considered work that has, I guess it's the opposite of what Liam's describing with clients who come in looking for the superficial moko kauai for the flavor art in their you know setting book. The work that's being done here, and then I guess KiwiRPG is a great example of it. Is there's depth, beyond the moko kauai. There's understanding and rationale for why there would be a moko kauai, and it's not there just it's because it's cool. Yeah, how about that for a rabbit hole, eh?
Aye.
Sheesh.
Aye. No, that's like, yeah, you're pretty much right. And it is one of those things where it's like, well, I used to be one of those people who was on Twitter and real quick to point and shout when someone had done something wrong. And then it kind of occurred to me over time, and this is actually true of my professional life. I often describe myself as professionally Māori. I'm an executive at an organisation, and I handle T to the T strategy and relationships, right? And over time, I went from seeing my role as like almost a gatekeeper of Te Ao Māori, and being real quick to call out what I saw as wrong, and then realizing actually all you do then is scare away the people who want to do the right thing but don't know how, and the people who are racist don't care and keep doing what they want to do anyway. And the same thing happens in tabletop RPGs and in publishing. The more and more I was pointing the finger and yelling at people, I noticed, and there's some really egregious examples out there. There's one book in particular that just wholesale recreates Moriori sort of myths and goes on about the Moriori are a bunch of people who don't have a will to live and want to be destroyed and all this. This is a book that you can go and buy, right? And it goes on about how all sorts of horrible racist stuff that was all written 100 years ago and disproven immediately has been recreated as a fact in an RPG line that's famous for its historical accuracy, apparently. Right, so like those people are going to keep making it regardless, right? And then the people who want to try and include it, but include it in a good way, but don't know how, and aren't sure how to engage with it, they're the ones who are afraid of being offensive. That's why they're always coming to people like me going, how do we do this safely? And it's kind of like, well, you know, this is how you do it authentically. That should be the goal, is let's try and do it authentically as opposed to just worrying about doing it safely. And even better, if possible, you should be engaging people from that culture and letting them tell their own stories. And to which there are publishers out there that's the arc they take. So it's kind of, it is one of these things. I often in my day job, I describe it as you call in, not call out, right? You try and move the tide by getting the people who want to do the right thing and want to engage with the good stuff and have that genuine interest, but want to figure out how to do it safely. You engage with them, you try and get them on board and everything, and then you move the tide away from the ones that don't give a shit and are going to do the horrible stuff regardless, and they have all the power because of it, right? Because that was kind of what got me into working in this space. Because like, man, I've got all these strong opinions about how everyone's doing it wrong, but who's doing it right? and how do we be a part of that? And then yeah, that's just kind of one thing led to another, and I ended up working in the industry. And I think we need more of that. And in a perfect world, actually, that's just the Tauiwi perspective. You start looking around iwi Māori. If we create more stuff that's about us and our experiences, then hopefully there'll be more tamariki coming up, more rangatahi coming up that will look at that and go, hey, that looks like a bit of me, I want to get in on that. As opposed to looking at a D&D, and what they're basically looking at is the expansion west across America's flavored fantasy style. And then, trying to give them an alternative. So that's why you get stuff like what Riwhi does in particular, where it's grounded in Te Ao Māori. I think that's the kind of thing that we need more of. And then again, you're starting to see a wee bit of it turning up, in the streaming spaces and all of that, and the broader sort of part of it. And it's like, the more of that we get, the more our people will see ourselves in that, and the more engaged they want to be. I think that's kind of the way, because if we sit around and don't do it, then we're just going to be giving more control or more voice to those people who don't care about us, and will say what they want to say about us anyway.
I'm getting a real sense of like, if not me, then who kind of thing, where we're all like, okay, it doesn't exist, or it doesn't exist the way we want, let's just make it ourselves.
Well, I do think that the TTRPG space, I think, is characterized as being a place that is safe and welcoming of a variety of different people, regardless of their, like it's I think synonymous with being a safe space for people who are gender diverse, people who are from LGBTQIA+, and I think that's for good reason. It's defined by people practicing the expansion of their imaginations and the telling of stories. And I think it's an incredible space, and a TTRPG as a thing is like the perfect opportunity for someone who isn't, well steeped in Māoritanga, or isn't super comfortable with Te Reo Māori, to practice, right? You kind of practice being heroic, you practice saving the day, you practice standing up for your values when you play these stories, depending on the stories. You might be playing a shithead trying to steal something. That's by the by. But I think part of what really excites me about the potential of this space, and the potential of what it can do for Māori and tauiwi alike, is that it's almost like the perfect practice ground for these ideals, for practicing these values, for practicing things as granular as te reo, and in the ideal table where you are surrounded by people you trust and who you are safe with to experiment and to fail and to et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's all the more important for people like yourselves, the game designers of our country, to be producing resources that people can use to practice in a way that is grounded in Te Ao Māori reality.
I've got two things to respond to that, actually. I 100% agree. I think the fact that role play is cathartic, right? Like, it's about inhabiting a mind space and a perspective that isn't your own, gives you that opportunity to explore all kinds of different things, right? And it gives us the capacity to build a bit of empathy and sort of experience that isn't something that we can do in the day-to-day, for better or worse, right? Whether that experience is kicking in the door and stabbing a bunch of monsters, or going on some spiritual journey, or whatever it may be. I think that's the strength of role-playing games. And I think, and this is when I'm giving consultation to people, I'm always saying, if you want to actually make an authentic feeling Indigenous culture, focus on worldview. Don't focus on aesthetics. Everyone always thinks about grass skirts and mokoko wai and the noble warrior and all that. Like forget that. Actually think about how these people engage with the world, right? And the one sort of thing I always lean on as an example is, if you actually look at the way different cultures view time versus the way we do in the modern modern industrial age, right? So I sometimes get to go to Wellington and lecture classes up there on world building, and this is one of the things I talk about is studies have shown, if you ask most Western people to imagine themselves walking through time, they'll imagine themselves walking in a straight line facing the future, often on their own, maybe with their family, going in a straight line towards the future. Whereas studies have shown most Indigenous communities, and this is true of Māori, imagine themselves going backwards, looking to the past, right? Because the past is where we learn our lessons to inform the future. If you think about how the way we talk about whakapapa and all that kind of stuff, that's there. And on top of that, when Māori have been spoken to as part of this, they often don't imagine themselves going in a straight line, but almost walking in like a kuru, right? And the past is right there. You can reach out and grab your tupuna, but also your mokopuna are right there too. And what they're going to experience is something you think about as well. And time isn't this thing that kind of, once you've moved past it, it's gone. You're just going forward, right? So once you start engaging with the way cultures actually engage with the world and see the world that's different, then in your fictional world, this whatever this culture is that you're making will feel more authentic, as opposed to it just being the same as your culture but a different look, right, and a different way of talking, different names and all that aesthetic stuff. So I think that's one way too, because you can start having a bit of a tutu and a bit of a play with different ways of engaging the world. So that's one of those thought streams. The second one is my white whale of a role-playing game that I've been sitting on for years and years and years, and it hasn't moved past concept. I even have a publisher that's keen to help me make it, but I've got too much shit I need to do first before I start this project. I've got this thing in my mind where I'm imagining like almost like three separate games that together tell one big arc, right? And it's, imagine effectively Aotearoa or a fictional version, like a surrogate of Aotearoa. And imagine starting on a waka with a character sheet, which is just a blank pepeha except for your name and the name of your waka, and you're landing effectively the equivalent of kupe, arriving for the first time. And you play through the process of filling out, living through the purako, the myths that tie you to your pepeha, right? So you go and you win over the taniwha that guards their awa, and then that becomes your awa. You go and help that, you know, how we've so many iwi have got their various purako of mountains that are heartbroken. You go and help their heartbroken mountain, you know, it's to sort of find some joy in the world again, and then he becomes your maunga, you know, all that kind of thing. I have this idea of having that. So you play these people who arrive, and you go through the process of going from people of, you know, your tangata moana to tangata whenua, right, and becoming of the land. And that's one campaign arc, right, and that can exist on its own, or it can be part one of a three-part arc, right? So you play through all of that, you play through your tupuna, and at the end, you end up naming your iwi, and ideally, it's one of the player characters becomes their version of Kahanuni, right, or whatever. Fast forward a few hundred years, right? So that's real mythical too. You make that real mythical. There's big sort of, you know, the atua kicking about. You've got, you know, big taniwha, all of that. You make it like, you know, the mountains are walking and all that kind of stuff, like our stories. Fast forward to the second part of this three-piece arc. You are one of the descendants of those characters, right? So they're your tupuna now, and you are living in the classical Māori period, or the equivalent of, when something quite significant is happening, right? And particularly the arrival of colonizers, right? So, and you play through, I think about people like Tira Paraha, right? Because I even actually in my own whakapapa, Tamatarangi, the grandson of Ruapani, the son of Kahanunu, who abandoned their pa in Gisborne, just outside of Gisborne, to move down to where I'm from, just outside of Frasertown, because Ngāti Porou was chasing us out. Kia ora, bro. Was chasing us out.
Hey, I wasn't there, bro. Come on now.
I think about how connected I am to my Tūronga Waiwai, and the thought of making that decision to go, sorry, whānau, we got to go, right? So at that point, you've got people who already played through the linking themselves to their land, right? They played through all of that. They remember vividly the relationship that their tupuna has with their mountain, and they play through that. They play through colonizers turning up and trying to get them to sign T to the T, you know, muskets, all that kind of stuff. You have all those difficult choices and get to play a slightly more grounded, less mythological era in this timepiece, but like almost like a Game of Thrones Māori edition in a way, and trying to decide what decisions you would make, knowing that you're bound to that awa and you may need to abandon it, right? Like, what do you do? And play through that, and then have that finishing potentially with the equivalent of a signing of T to the T. And then the third arc is fast forward to the modern day. You're back with an empty pepeha. You don't know your whakapapa. You don't know who you are, and you're the Ram Raiders. You know, you're on some youth course or something in some urban centre, and you start to reconnect with your whakapapa. Going on a trip up to the Maunga that has got a colonised name now, and there you start having visions of these people talking to you, and as player characters, you would be like, bro, I think that's my character from our first arc. Remember that guy? I think that's you, bro. That we're talking, and having that reconnection of whakapapa and that rediscovery of whakapapa. And I think, I think of those three things as a way to practice pepeha, right? Think about the tikanga that we already have in role-playing games. We already have these processes that we follow. You can start embedding those into a game like this. So at the start of every session, everyone introduces themselves with their character's pepeha. And, in their first one, you're only saying, oh, I'm so-and-so and this is my waka, right? But then by the end of that campaign, you've got this big thing. And all of those things give you in-game benefits, right? And then in that second arc, you start having that tension as some of those things might change and all that stuff's changing. And it's like, what does it mean when you say that you're awa, but you've left it behind? How do you feel about that? And then that third one of rediscovery. And I'm thinking specifically for young rangatahi who are maybe a bit whakamā to practice their own pepeha. If they're in this environment where they're standing up before they play, going around the room, introducing themselves and all that kind of stuff, and it's kind of that ability to practice and engage in a way that isn't it's got no stakes really. If you get it wrong, no one's gonna be like, oh, you don't know your people. You don't get any of that. You don't get their whakama. You can kind of just go with it. But also it gives tauiwi that want to engage actually their feeling of knowing what it is like to be like, no, I'm related to that maunga. That's not just a hill I live next to. That's my tupuna, right? And have them experience that or understand. Because we always hear that, oh, well, why did your ancestors do this then if they cared about that? It was like, well, maybe role play through that situation, role play through having to make that tough choice, and make those decisions yourself. And then also that reconnection piece. That's like my white whale, something I really want to do. And I had a publisher when I was in America. I told that yarn to someone, and then they told me they wanted to help make it. And I said I'd only do it if they... if I did do it with them, if they enabled me to print copies in te reo Māori to send to all the kaupapa. And I was like, okay, sure, we'll do that. So I've been saying I'm going to make this fucking thing for 3 years now.
I was going to say, I've heard you talk about it a few times, and
I have to do it at some point.
Every time I'm really excited, but also sad. Really excited because I want it to exist, and I'm excited for it to exist. Yeah. But sad because it doesn't exist yet.
That's a huge whakaro, bro. That's. I mean, I was transported. First of all, copyright Liam towards Tabletop. You can't steal that great idea. That's his. That's his IP. But also, can I make an offer that you realize at the end of the third campaign, there's a big bad evil guy who's been there the whole time through all 3 generations. His name's Winston Peters. He never dies. He's the ancient of the... I'm just kidding.
I hear you.
He's undefeatable.
I wrote a Māori adventure for something that is no longer being published. It was I think I'm allowed to talk about it now since it's not being published. I don't know. So a publisher I was working with had the license to do the Tomb Raider RPG, and it got pulled from them by the license holder because they were worried it was a bit too woke and a bit too controversial. But they had me come in and write something based in a fictional sort of hapu here in Aotearoa, and I had a character whose name was Winston Seymour, I think it was, or it might have been David Peters, something like that. And it was the tokenistic,
real subtle,
the tokenistic Māori politician that was undermining the locals.
Yeah, that's tough, man. That's going to rack some people up.
Yeah,
that would motivate as a player character. That would motivate me to stop mucking around at the shop and get on with the main story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not going to see a lot of day. That's some of my best work too. But
Yeah, I'm conscious that we're just about an hour deep into our wānanga, but I wanted to throw back to Riwhi about your original prompt, whether you had any whakaaro about your experience of Māoritanga in this space. You're on mute there, Marcus.
My bad. Thank you. The classic refrain, eh? I was reflecting the other day and like counting and doing maths, and like I've been playing D&D since I was 15, so 10 years. And it was only 9 years into that I played D&D with another Māori person, which is just wild numbers to actually think about. But because I, played with like people that I met at like rainbow youth groups, and then people I met online, and then just friend groups, and just there was no like it's such a niche within a niche, and it was just really shocking to me to actually get that number in my head and be like, that's so long without. But now I'm like playing multiple games with like multiple Māori people, and it's actually like there's a real like I really feel just like it just feels wonderful like to be in a TTRPG group or space where you don't have to like explain the effects of colonization and how terrible it was, and you know that if that does come up like as a theme, like it's going to be treated with respect and like the respect that it needs. And like actually then you can get into games that do deal with like things like colonization as a theme, because it is going to be held in a way that isn't just doesn't have that grounding. So I think that for me that was a real big like, oh shit, like that's been that long. But
it's probably worth also just like and I don't want to speak for you, but my experience, I'm lucky enough to be surrounded with a bunch of people who tauiwi as, but also tangata tiriti as, staunch in their allyship, and deeply passionate about uplifting and supporting kaupapa Māori where they can. And so it's not as if I shout outs to my mates. I'm not but it is different when you're Māori among Māori. There's a shared experience there that goes beyond describing, sometimes beyond description almost. And there's also something that makes me sad, because like this is one of the, as a hobby, as a pastime, playing tabletop storytelling collaboratively in this fashion is one of the coolest and most fun things you can do. Contrary to popular belief, it's actually cool as hell. And I do know that there's so many whānau Māori mates that I have who would absolutely love it, particularly a bunch of mates that I've got from performing arts background, who it's just like such a tough sell, trying to be like, hey man, come and pretend to be an elf with me, and right, we'll save the kingdom or whatever. And I do think that would be different if there was if there were more diverse angles, something along the lines of what Liam's took some time to describe, this vision of like a holistically Māori experience that you could have within the framework of a tabletop RPG. Because it is, man, it's such a special hobby and a special pastime. And preaching to the choir now, because I think we all appreciate that and understand that. That's why we're here. But how do you throw the doors open to rangatahi Māori? How do you throw the doors open to, like, I think about my old man who's deeply set in his ways, but I know he would absolutely love it if he could get past the the barriers that are initially there between a person who has no understanding of what it is to role play and sitting down and rolling dice and writing on a piece of paper and imagining the shit out of some kind of fantastical adventure. Talking around in circles a little bit, but I feel like we're all on the same page here.
I was lucky because I started playing RPGs at 7 and I was in Gizzy. So I got to play with Māori right from the start, but we weren't playing as Māori. Does that make sense? Like our Māori tongue never came up at the table. And it was a mixed table that never came up. It was only a couple of years ago. It was around about 2021-ish, 2022. I was asked to join an all Māori table, except for there was one tauiwi in the group, I think, but they were all whānau. It was a couple of cousins running for their boys and their friends. So it was like intergenerational within the whānau. And their GM was a bit burnt out and they wanted someone to come in and run a game for them for a few months. So I was like, yeah, I'll come along. And honestly, it was the coolest thing ever to be at a table that, and the one guy that wasn't Māori, and I'm not entirely sure if he was or wasn't, so he could be if they're watching this, aroha mai. But he was clearly on the kaupapa. Like he was clearly raised, and these guys were from a small town in the far north, so they were all on board, right? So it was if you get that opportunity, do it. Anyone who's watching us right now, do it. And I think as well, what they were doing was, we're talking about rangatahi Māori playing with their parents and the uncle and all of this, and it was their proper getting together, and all as tāne Māori all getting together and kind of having this hobby that they did together that was intergenerational, and it was all about coming together. And because they were all close friends and whānau, they were able to sort of go places or whatever. Everyone was always backstabbing dad, that kind of thing. But it was it was cool. Like, it was honestly, it made me think a lot, because my normal home group, I'm the only one. My online group is all actually mostly tauiwi overseas. So it's like, it made me appreciate, actually, man, like, I kind of need to try and find some more of us, just to have a group that's just us for that exact same thing that you're describing. It's like, if you ever get the chance to work in kaupapa Māori, not having to explain yourself, just turning up and being you, same kind of thing, 100%, as you were saying.
Hey, what are we all up to after this call, eh? What are we all
At 9 p.m. on a...
Can I ask, I wanted to ask Sascha, I understand Sascha's an important Māori voice in the literature scene.
Oh God, I've been told that, and I always. Sorry, are you using those words on purpose because of the whole thing?
I am. It's a rack up. It's on this.
It's a rock.
It was from a article that Sascha wrote for the spin-off.
My publisher kept. I've been pretty disconnected, and I've been on this reconnection journey for about 10 years. I sold this book in the States, and they're like, a bold new voice a bold new novel by an important Maori voice. And I was just like, you can't put me there. You can't. I haven't spent enough time in the kitchen. I cannot be speaking in the marae.
Hey, look, in the context of this panel, you're a bold, important Maori voice, Sascha.
I mean, that was God, 6 or 7 years ago now. I'm a lot further on my journey. I'm still, I didn't grow up in the far north, kind of deep in it. I would kind of wish I had, because there is that whakama of disconnection. But like, it's coming along. I did my masters last year.
You said you were
class was Māori.
Aroha mai pal. You said you were running a game in a session before we jumped online to record this, correct? The way in which you relate to your Māoritanga, does that factor into the way that you DM or GM for games?
Ooh, big question. I don't know, to be honest. I think I can say it strongly affects the way I tell stories.
Of course.
And GMing is kind of just an extension of that. But yeah, the game I was running just before this was Blade 68, so it was just kind of a funny British 1960s crime caper.
A lot of scope for bringing Māoritanga into that, I feel like.
It's written by KiwiRPG, remember?
Well,
there you go.
Yeah.
There is scope for it. That's an overseas crew, so none of them are Kiwis. I mean, it's something I would like to try more locally, I think. I wanted to go a little. So my weird pet Māori TTRPG thing is Lancer, the mech RPG, because they have a people called the Spari, and the Spari are space Māori, and they've got very little lore. But the lore they have is, I think, when I tried to talk to one of the devs about it, they were just like, they live on a planet where the outside is quite inhospitable, but then beneath it there's this like thickened darkness that they discovered with all of these incredible creatures. And I was going, that's Te Kore and Te Po. That's Te Kore and Te Po. And then they go into space, they go into the stars. And I, like, when I run Lancer, I tend to run Sparrow campaigns, and when I play Lancer, I tend to play Sparrow characters. And I don't think there was like an intentional sitting down by these devs to write this out, but there's just enough that it has given me kind of space to play with those ideas, and I've really tremendously enjoyed doing that. And yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, we were talking way earlier about how D&D is built in these colonial ideas of, you know, you go and you kill the people and you take their stuff. And so it's always in D&D. It's always felt like there's a misalignment of the world and the goals. And for whatever reason, Lancer doesn't feel like it has that for me, and it's been a really cool, expressive space to play. And I think I would like to design something a bit like that, that kind of, again, I don't think they intentionally ideologically sat down and we want to make something that, you know, fits with, you know, Ka Māori, but they did, and playing it has been this tremendously kind of healing experience. And if someone were to sit down and do that with a lot of intentionality, you know, do something like Liam was talking about, I think that could be like a really powerful tool. I don't know. I'm rambling. Am I making?
No,
am
you
I
had
making
Make a lot of
sense?
sense.
you had me at Space Māori. Holy shit!
Yeah, I unironically love the Sparrow. I think these two American guys just stumbled into something really cool, mostly by accident, because they were doing we want to have the brown people with tattoos in
Yes.
space.
I almost need a Sascha to come and be like, "Hey, let me just take this off you because it could be sick.
Aye.
People could love this if you do it right." Do you think they just saw that is it the Patia Māori Club album cover where they're riding the moor and
Aye.
there's like
Aye.
robots and lasers and shit?
People and
Yeah,
Possibly, I will say,
aimless. I reckon.
the book I wrote for my masters, which got an A+, is based on that Patia Māori cover.
Well,
with
let's
Māori
fucking go.
riders.
I
So that, after I finish Dawnhounds 3, I'm going to be talking to my agent about that book, which has Mola riding Māori warriors and stuff.
That's
Yeah.
I also have also my white whale of a game is like a belonging outside belonging game set on like a Māori spaceship that has left the Earth after like a climate disaster. And so like it's entirely in this like Māori community on a spaceship. But I was also inspired by this poem by Robert Sullivan, Starwalker, and I can look up the exact number in his book Starwalker. But I think there's a real like loveliness to like being inspired by other art, but then also that's like Space Māori is a real like there's so much Space Māori stuff. It's like a theme.
Our ancestors were guided by the stars, and then they go into them. It's natural. It's cool. It's right there.
Yeah.
Aye. Aye.
Voyages, voyaging into the next unknown. You know, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Book it. I mean, I don't have a white whale of a game I'm trying to write, but hey, if any of you guys want to turn these into actual plays, we can produce some stuff. What are we up to after this call, Whānau? What are we?
It always warms my heart whenever someone brings up their Patia Māori Club cover. I recently did some work. It's still under NDA, so I can't. I think it will always be under NDA. But I consulted on a big video game that all of us here will know, and one of the things I sent them was that cover. It's like it's explaining various bits and pieces, and there's like
That's the culture. That's so important.
It's Māori futurism, right?
Yeah, right
It's
there.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like all of the coolest parts of science fiction and sort of futurism thinking through the lens of indigenous Māori worldview, which kind of feels like, you know, a combination of two incredibly cool ways of thinking about the world.
Aye.
But also like the Pātea Māori Club, they're not niche, you know, they're everywhere.
Aye.
It's like I think it's a really cool thing to be like, nah, that's across us all.
Aye. I just want to touch on, so going back to something Sascha was saying about their whole feeling sort of toe in our taha Māori, or feeling a bit whakamā about it. You know, obviously we're all on our various journeys and things out there, and you know, don't get me wrong, I've certainly had many a moment where I feel every time I have to stand up and fight Kōrero, I feel whakamā as. But it is one of those things where, you know, the question that, you know, Aihe there was asking, you know, how has, you know, has your Māori sort of tanga influenced what you've done? You know, when you whakapapa Māori, that's all it takes, right? You are Māori. You're tupuna with you all the time. You're always, you've got everything you need right there, which means whether you realise it or not, all of your storytelling is infused with te ao Māori. There isn't one correct sort of tika way to do that, right? So like, yeah, it's one of those things where even though sometimes we may feel a bit of imposter syndrome or feel a bit whakamā, and I'm not just saying this to Sascha, I'm saying this to any of our listeners as well, who may be Māori or whoever they may be. It's one of those things where it's like, your tupuna got you, you know, whether you are super, you know, confident in your taha Māori or not, they're confident in you. You're their wildest hopes and dreams. So everything that you know, all of us in this and any other Māori out there, everything they do is a Māori thing, just by virtue of them doing it. And don't ever sit there and sort of shrink away from it. Yeah, even though that might be your first response, and like I say, I certainly do it. You just know that your tupuna got you. They always will. Yeah, we descend from greatness, whānau, so we should really lean into that. I actually have
Kōrero.
I have a bit of a my uncle, my mum's uncle. He was in the Māori battalion, and he wrote a bunch of his memoirs. And when he passed, he left a book to each of us with handwritten notes in it. And his was, always remember that you are descended from greatness. Your tupuna crossed the greatest body of water on earth for you to get here, and their mana lives in you. You do not own their mana, you simply look after it for future generations, but it will enable you to do great things. No matter what happens, always remember you are descended from greatness, right? And that's true for all of us. I carry that shit around with me. That's the reason why I'm like, I'm going to write this thing and then just do it. So know that. So next time someone says to you, Sascha, that you're an important or prominent or whatever Māori author, yeah, I own that.
At this point, I feel more comfortable with it. It was like my first novel had just come out, and I was like, oh no. I mean, it was like, oh, my ancestors, you know, my marae is a karatane. That's a name that carries, you know, all over the country. Everybody knows karatane. And that's a huge amount of pride, you know. I'm not related to Big Mary, the famous Big Mary, but as I understand, she was named after my tupuna. This caused some crises when I was doing whakapapa research, because there are two Mary Harpers from Karetane. One of them's about 40 years older than the other. But yeah, I am proud of who I am, the stock I come from, and I think one of the things that really helped me reconnect was that when I was like, you know, I was basically raised Pākehā, and I started showing up in Māori spaces when I was in law school because I was failing, and I just went to the Māori Students Union because I just need help. I just need help, and everybody was like, oh yeah, people joked about, of course you're Tahu, like look at you, of course you're Tahu, but then there were like no questions asked, and everybody was just like, and that let me start actually kind of actively reconnecting. It was the fact that people were so kind and open. And yeah, at this point, I think I would be okay with prominent Māori author. This was 6 or 7 years ago now, and I was so brand new on the scene. It was terrifying. It felt like too much mana. It felt like I was gonna like pop like a balloon.
Right.
I think that feeling's super relatable as well. Of you know, also, you know, I'm not somebody who was raised deeply steeped in their taha Māori, and it's been a process of regathering and reclaiming and re-immersing myself. And there is a strong feeling, I think, particularly if you're put on any kind of public platform, or you're upheld as an example of you know, Māori excelling in your particular field of work, of like, oh shit, the Māoris are going to come for me if I claim to be a bold voice, then they're going to know. But you know, tēnā koe mo tērā kōrero pono, Liam, I mean, it takes sometimes it's like a mantra you have to tell yourself every day, that it's not something that we necessarily need to be worthy of. You know, our reo was forcibly removed from our whānau, from our tipuna, from our kōrero and our grandparents and great grandparents, and it's like, you know, we're wrestling against the effects of, again, preaching to the choir here, I'm sure, but wrestling against the effects of a big, long, fucked up system of oppression that's will continue to echo through generations. But I mean, what a thrill to hear people like yourselves talking about the sort of developments within a niche space like this, because and to bear witness to some of the work that you fellas do. And yeah, it's just like, you know, I was perusing some of Riwhi's catalog of solo RPGs, and was just like blown away by the work rate of this designer, and thrilled to see that there was, you know, to your point, I think maybe Liam made a little earlier about these RPGs that are written from kaupapa Māori perspective, and rooted in a ao Māori perspective, opening the door to people who don't whakapapa Māori to have experiences within it. You know, you've done incredible mahi to make it accessible for people to experience what it's like to be a baby pūkeko on the marae on a beautiful day. And that's, you know, I feel like that's part of it. That's the mahi. That's what I've been missing as somebody finding their feet within this hobby, within this space. And you know, kudos due. Credit where credit's due. Game recognized game and all that.
Kia ora. Yeah, I was reflecting as well as you were speaking, Sascha, about that like feeling of, well, first of all, I've been coming to use the term disruption rather than like disconnection, because I feel for me that is like more accurate, like in, you know, as an external force, because to me disconnected feels like it blames. But I was reflecting as well on like how writing TTRPGs has been an incredible tool in that journey of reclamation. And like, I know, like looking back, I'm like, man, this doesn't feel quite right, or I wish I'd done this better, but I still acknowledge that these were important steps for me in like reconnect, like doing that, coming back to Te Ao Māori in the ways that, you know, was erased from my tupuna in a explicit sense. And I have this little dream of running some workshops or something for Māori to come and engage in TTRPG design. And I don't know what that would look like, but that is just something that I would love to do, because I've experienced for myself how like powerful it's been to explore those themes. And even the games that aren't explicitly about Te Ao Māori have been real powerful ways of like processing and storytelling.
Good. If I can help, shout out.
I think also like this medium, like it's play. Play is the word, right? It's a really good space to kind of experiment with ideas that might be a little bit scary in the real world. And to kind of just have fun with it and slip in and out of things. And like it's almost like, I'm trans. It's almost a running joke in the trans community that like a lot of us play TTRPGs to kind of figure ourselves out before we come out. Like there will be a man who's just playing nothing but women in TTRPGs for 10 years, and then we'll suddenly be like, oh, hey guys, guess what? Doesn't mean everybody who's doing it is going through that process, but I think it is a space to explore gender, like free from like a lot of weight and expectation, because it's, in my experience, it's very, very scary to do it in the real world. And especially like at this point, I'm older and I'm just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go out and be cocky and whatever. But when you're first starting out, it's absolutely terrifying. And TTRPGs gave me a really productive space, and that give a lot of people a really productive space. And I think, your work, if you like, extends that to Māoritanga in a really kind of, a way that makes my heart, very big.
Kōrero. This is great. You should all talk to me about how much you like my games all the time. Can we make this weekly? Whenever I need a boost. No, but
Plug it in the calendar.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right. No, but own that too, Aihe. Like this is like, it's a bit of a Māori thing. Everyone always thinks to be Māori is to be humble. And I think there's a degree of that, but I think actually the joy of being a kahanunu is actually, no, be proud. Own that. Sometimes if you don't sing your own praises, you don't know who else will. So, you do awesome stuff. And also like, you pointed out earlier, you started writing, what was it, a couple of years ago, and you jumped into it straight away. Whereas so many people out there, will be like, oh, I have to get my time in the game before I can tackle something that's sort of significant to me or whatever. And it's like, no, actually, just do it. Nike, just go do it. Ka pai. I think it's awesome.
Tēnā koe.
There's something in as well, just to mihi to what you said, Sascha, about the trans experience and how Tabletop was a safe space or a platform that let you experiment or let you grow in a part, closer to your true authentic self. I feel like minorities have a lot more in common than they do, than not. And I feel like there is a parallel, or there is an example of, very different, complex, separate sort of identity areas of self-expression. But I do think there's an example there to be learned from, in terms of people who are disrupted from their taha Māori, from their Māoritanga, who aren't feeling the solidarity or the strength of what Liam expressed before. That they're not living every day as if they are conscious of their connection to their tipuna, because there are, for as many people as there are who have reconnected and who have had the privilege of going to Urumaki reo and reclaiming their reo and living their best lives. I think there are so many other Māori who are at the other end of that spectrum, and there is something that I feel, and I do feel it passionately, like Tabletop is or could be a really potent space tool. I don't know exactly the right sort of kupu to put around it, but in the sense that somebody can explore in a safe space with people that they love and get closer to their true authentic self in the way that Sascha explained or described to us before. I do strongly feel like that experience could be held for someone who was trying to get closer to their Māoritanga, to their tupuna, through the the construct of maybe maybe something like a 3-part epic campaign, something along the lines of what Liam described before. Copyright Liam, tour tabletop. You can't steal that idea. That's Liam's idea. Yeah, there's some kind of grand thesis statement underneath that I'm sort of scratching at the edges of, but it excites me, and it kind of, I think it gets me going and motivates me towards figuring out how to make content for this space and how to really, even for my, playing games for my own pleasure, how I can play with that in mind, so that, I don't know, so that my daughter or my mokopuna can experience kind of what I'm starting to imagine. Who knows?
I don't think you even need that a 3-part epic to start that, right? Like you can start that in a small way in whatever game you're playing now. Like if you're playing D&D, for example, if we've described that maybe a slightly harder one, but let's say that's the game most people are playing. So, and you are curious if you're a Māori who's early on their journey due to that disruption, because again, remember, don't feel guilty about that. None of us chose to be colonized. So it's one of those things where, if you're looking at, you're starting to explore your whakapapa, you're starting to explore Te Ao Māori, just pick a couple of things from Te Ao Māori that seem a bit strange to you from our more westernized perspective, and then make those like truths for your character, and just try to role play a character that is like a non-negotiable truth. So whatever that may be. So if you have a character that always is making decisions not based on the short-term benefits, but rather the way it'll impact their mokopuna, right? Or you lean into the maramataka, and you have an in-game version of maramataka that your character lives by. And this is a safe way to do it, because if you get something wrong, you haven't breached no tapu or anything. You haven't actually screwed anything up for any real mokopuna. It's a safe way to kind of explore these things, and just slowly, just one little thread at a time, leave it in, and then after you've done it, make believe for a while, you might be like, oh, actually, I think I'm starting to see how this works.
Could be the smallest thing your character does. Could be that they just always get a packet of biscuits on their way over to visit their whānau. Don't show up empty-handed.
Aye. And if you've got a good GM, they'll lean into that. Make that GM should make you. You got your last coin. Are you going to get them biscuits? You're going to go broke. And then what does that mean?
Don't show up empty-handed.
That's it. Aye. You'll start to you'll get there. You'll before you know it. And that's the thing. Before you know it, you'll be in the kitchen with the tea towel,
pretending to dry some dishes. The old pastime.
Oh, that's it. You're catching all the gossip.
I always say best gossip on a marae, the kota and the smoking area.
Either that or leaning on the shovel next to the pit.
It's a really silly thing I've always tried to incorporate, but like I wrote this book and then I went to this writer's retreat at the marae up in the heart. And one thing that really stuck with me is there is always a young guy playing acoustic guitar on the marae. At all times. Like it doesn't matter what it's happening, it will just be a guy with an acoustic guitar kind of jamming away. And whenever I'm in Māori spaces, music is always there. In a way, because I move between Māori and Pākehā spaces pretty frequently, and it's not that there is no music in Pākehā spaces, but I think there is, like it's so central to me, to the Māori experience, that like I try and work it into every character. I like try and work it into everything, and that's a little thing, but I think that's an example for me of like just a little way to make a character more meaningfully Māori. I don't know.
No, it's about like the fact that it has a purpose, a function, or a job in terms of the social constructs of pōheritanga, or you sing to tautoko and to sort of like you do the waiata kinaki as the seasoning to support and embellish and uplift somebody's whai kōrero. And so it's like, yeah, I mean, it holds a central part and a really crucial role in the functioning of, you could say, like Māori society, in a way that I suppose, in a Western sense, it's almost treated as a nice to have extra. I think if you go back far enough, it probably has a more fundamental role. But yeah, and also I'm picturing that guitar, and it's one of those orange school guitars with the nylon strings, like impossible to stay
absolutely.
in tune.
Yeah, you got it.
I'm right there, transported.
Hi. Yeah, you're always you're never short on friends if you're good at the old Māori strum and you're kicking about in Te Ao Māori. I'm actually, I have a degree in jazz. I can't Māori strum to save myself, and it's a shame because every time people have to stand up and do a waiata, I'm always jealous of the one that just gets to strum the guitar. It's like, man, if I could get that down.
You need someone to stand up and do a waiata and be like, anyone know any diminished chords?
Anybody got to do a bit of swing now, you know?
Give us a little flat ninth. There's some music humor. You didn't realize you'd come to this panel for the music humor, but there you go.
There you go.
That's how all-encompassing Te Ao Māori is.
Holistic, right?
Yeah.
That's what they call us, holistic.
Proving the point of the importance of music.
Yeah. Well, I'm conscious that we are coming to the end of the time that we said we would be keen to talk for. So maybe just if we want to share any closing thoughts. This is Kitten, by the way. Sorry if you can hear her purring.
Don't apologize.
You're welcome then. If there's any closing thoughts anyone has, or if there's like a message that anyone wants to kind of end on, or whakaaro. I know we've covered so much stuff. Like, you know, I feel inspired, I feel hopeful, I feel excited. So just really, really privileged and honored to be able to spend this time with you all. So thanks for joining me.
Koe hoki, pal. I don't have any grand, epic sweeping statements. I'll leave that to Liam. But I just it's a pleasure to interact and to share space and time with tangata Māori who are all, you know, involved with this space, and I'm left with a feeling of hopefulness and energized to drive towards a sort of sci-fi future where we ride on more with sort of laser guns, and the Tuatara people are sort of held at bay. I think there may be some kind of menace. Yeah, kia ora.
Kia ora.
Gonna have to make that part 4.
Well, so this is the first time you've talked to Liam. You clocked him so quickly.
No.
Not even me.
Well, you know, again, you know, ngā mihi nui kia koutou, eh? It's been awesome to kōrero with all of you. It's been enjoyable. It's a good way to spend a makarere Saturday night. In terms of grand sweeping statements, I think I've said the majority of them. Really, my main sort of point is just for anyone, like generally, Māori or not, if you're interested in getting into tabletop RPGs, or you're interested in writing for tabletop RPGs, or you want to draw up for them or whatever, just do it. Go out there and do it. And if you're Kiwi, if you're Māori, if you're from New Zealand or live in New Zealand, even if you're not from here originally, KiwiRPG is a community full of people who we all come together in Kōrero. When we founded it, we were asked to all fill the late shift for Big Bad Con Online during COVID, and there was all these frantic emails bringing all these Kiwi creatives together, and then we did a couple of panels just like this, And then we're like, man, that's actually really cool talking to other Kiwi creatives. And then we formed that. And then now where we're at now, where we're doing quite well, we're quite big. And it's an environment full of people who will support you and make what you do happen. If you're Māori and you're thinking about getting into this stuff, do it. Whatever that may be. If you want to go on a stream and do some cool stuff, then yeah, ka pai. If you want to write some stuff, ka pai. If you just want to play whatever, get some of your friends playing, go for it. Remember, role play isn't just all character sheets and dice or whatever. It is just collective storytelling, which is what our tupuna have been doing for thousands of years, right? I think there are a few things more Māori than role play, really. So engage with that as deeply or as loosely as you like. I've been playing role play games now for 33 years. I just wing it. I don't prep my shit. I just turn up and make it all up as I go, and my players seem to enjoy themselves. So just do it that way, and I just get into it. And if you're a Māori and you're creating stuff, you know, I can't wait to see it. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. And if you ever need a hand, just shout out. And if you can't track me down because I'm trying to keep a low key on social media these days, just find Riwhi, and Riwhi will shout at me, and and we'll do it that way. But just be awesome, whānau. And I've really enjoyed this kōrero.
Damn you, Liam. I was going to make some smart sounding connection between Indigenous storytelling and role playing as well. So you stole it and said it better than I could. So
you still say it. It's Tika. I would say
you've said it perfectly. Sascha, did you want to add anything?
Oh, I'm not wise enough to end this. I can't follow Liam. Are we kidding?
I know.
Bring it home, Sascha. Bring us home, pal.
Aye.
Hello, Tom Bloom and Miguel Lopez, the writers of Lancer. Please let me write the field guide to Spa.
Aye.
Thank you for your time.
Boom.
Well, kia ora koutou on that. I will close us with the karakia and let us go be warm and dry in this makariri season. So he karakia whakakapi tātou. Unuhia ki te uru tapanui, kia wātia, kia māma, te nākau, te tinana, te wairua i te arataka. Koe rā e rongo whakairea ake ke runga ki a tina.
Tina.
Huie, tai.
Like, yeah. Te whānau.